Hello and welcome back to Seconds Out. My name is Eamon Khan here with Hall of Fame writer Thomas Hauser. Good to be sharing a conversation with you again so soon at my request, of course. Thomas, how's things with you?
Everything is good here. Life goes on. Things keep changing in boxing and the rest of the world.
We'll get to boxing in a moment. We'll also get to your writing as well too. Uh, with this latest book on your family, when you write a book, when do you know that it's complete, that it's finished, and you're happy with it? What's the process of that like?
By the time I actually start writing, the book is fairly well outlined in my mind. I do it in a very meticulously organized fashion. I take notes. I put each individual thought on an index card. It's on my computer, and then I print them all out, put them on index cards. So by the time I finished gathering all my thoughts, concluded all my research, I pretty much know where I'm going with it. And then it's just a question of putting everything in order and executing the plan. When I finish the last chapter, it's sort of like hearing the bell ring after the 12th round. I know it's over. Now, I might have to do some polishing. I have the advantage of over a fighter, and that the fighter can't go back and redo mistakes that he's made in the ring. I go back over everything I've written, whether it's a book or an article for a small website, and polish and repolish until I'm happy with it. I take the view that everything I write, whether it's a book that's very important to me, like My Mother and Me, which is as we've talked about, is the story of my mother's life, or an article about a small club fight for a local website, it becomes part of my creative legacy. And that's something that all writers should keep in mind. Everything you do becomes part of your legacy. And you should take the same care and pride with an article that you write for a small website as you would take for an article you're writing for the Times of London.
Was it more of a challenging process in the sense that because this book was so personal to yourself?
Not really. I've written about family and about myself before, not in this detail, obviously. And it was, as I said to you, I think when we spoke previously, this book was really my last gift to my mother. I wanted her to have this marker so that years from now, there'd still be a record of who she was, the life she lived. And I enjoyed the process. One of the things that surprised me was that when my mother died, the grieving process was really very short. I really didn't grieve at all, and I loved my mother deeply, but she was 96 years old. She had gotten everything that she wanted out of her life. She had reached a point where she felt that she had lived long enough and was ready to die. And her death was almost like a kind, gentle conclusion. I had the feeling of a ship that had arrived safely home in harbor. And so while I think of her all the time, there's not a day that goes by where I don't think of my mother. I really don't grieve for her. It brings a smile to my face when I think of her.
I thought you found that contentment there. Looking forward to reading the musings in the book. Thomas, forget your thoughts also on your other writing. You wrote an article in The Guardian regarding proposals for aiding in fixing boxing's its seemingly widespread drug problem. As boxing's epicenter shifts towards Saudi Arabia, you put forward some proposals in how Saudi can maybe combat the problem that we're facing in boxing. Could you lay those out there? That here, Thomas?
Sure. First, it's a matter of record that I have been critical of, had misgivings regarding the migration of big fights to Saudi Arabia. That said, it's a fact of life. It's here. And so the idea is, how do we make it work better, not just for the Saudis, but for all of boxing? And this article really was almost like an open letter to Turki Al Sheikh, who is the point person on Saudi Arabia's boxing program. He is the head of the Saudi Arabian General Entertainment Authority, which oversees all these fights. And it said, in effect, that the use of performance enhancing drugs is a scourge in boxing. It also violates the precepts of fair play and the mandate against cheating that one finds in the Quran. I'm not an Islamic scholar, but that seems clear from what I know about the Quran, particularly through my long association with Muhammad Ali. And the article said that if His Excellency wanted to make a significant, positive, lasting contribution to boxing, he should enter into an agreement with VADA to have VADA test every single fighter who wanted to fight in Saudi Arabia or under the Saudi auspices. In other words, the Saudis would fund the program. There are two main obstacles to effective drug testing in boxing. One is cost, because it's expensive to do it right. Two is you need the motivation. Fighters have to want to go into the program, and a lot of fighters don't for obvious reasons. But virtually every fighter today wants to fight in Saudi Arabia. So the point of the article was that the Saudis would fund a boxing, the Saudi Arabian clean boxing program with VADA in order to fight under the auspices of the General Entertainment Authority. A fighter would have to have been enrolled in this drug testing program 365, 24/7 for at least 6 months. Obviously, at the start, you'd only have to be enrolled from the start of the program. But once 6 months had passed, you would have to have been enrolled in this program for 6 months. I suspect that most fighters would enter into it because they want the big purses that come from fighting in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis have the money to fund it, and it could make a real difference in boxing. That article was posted, I guess, Saturday? Would have been Saturday, May 4th, I think was last Saturday. Sunday, His Excellency posted a response on Twitter thanking me for the suggestion, saying that the GEA was going to move forward on drug plans, including working with VADA, although he wasn't specific, and encouraging me to send any more suggestions that I had to him. So I was very pleased by that response. The proof of the pudding would be in the eating. If the Saudis implement this plan and it leads to boxing becoming a cleaner sport, that would be a wonderful legacy for Turki Aleksheikh to leave behind when all his work is done in the sport.
Have any further, however small, conversations happened off of the back of the article and the subsequent tweet from the article?
I have not heard of specific conversations between the Saudi government or GEA and VADA. I do know that VADA is going to be very involved in the testing of the next GEA show, which will be in Los Angeles, I believe, on August 3rd. And VADA has been retained to do drug testing for that fight.
How likely do you feel that these proposals will be taken on board?
I don't know. I mean, it's not my decision to make. There is a realistic chance, to my way of thinking. It depends on the GEA first fully understanding the dimensions of the problem and the nuances of everything that go into combating the illegal use of PEDs in boxing, and then deciding that they want to make the commitment. If they do make the commitment, then we'll be in a very interesting situation because it's inevitable that somebody will test positive under those circumstances. And then the question is, will the Saudis stand resolute in enforcing the dictates of the program? I suspect that they will. You know, a fighter can threaten litigation against the BBBFC or the New York State Athletic Commission, or threaten to sue UCAD or VADA or anybody else. I don't know that there are many fighters that are going to stand in line to sue the Saudi Arabian government or the GEA. I don't think they want to go to Saudi Arabia to do that. And I don't think it would augur well for them. So the Saudis have, and also I might add, the Saudis have the finances that they're not going to be intimidated by the threat of a lawsuit. One of the problems the BBBFC has in this whole situation with Conor Benn is the BBBFC has limited financial resources. And to fight legal claims, whether they're brought by Dillian White or Conor Benn or anybody else, is really threatening to the existence of the company. I suspect that the Saudi Arabian government has more resources financially to back up its position than any fighter or promoter does.
I wonder how you feel about the latest regarding Ryan Garcia's situation. He's claimed recently that the results of the tests show that he's acquitted of any wrongdoing for taking, or well, for having Ostarine present in his system. Devin Haney's come back and said, it's not the case, and he's got the right to, and he has requested his B sample there, but that's likely to come back positive as well. But there's a whole back and forth regarding Ryan Garcia's situation off the back of what was an impressive win, but is now clouded somewhat with this situation.
Well, let's start with the fact that this is an example where the boxing media is failing miserably to fulfill its duty. Because what happens is, whether it's Conor Benn, Dillian White, Ryan Garcia, they all talk about how I've been acquitted by the science, I've been judged innocent, I'm cleared to fight again, I'm this or that. And the boxing media reports it, and they think because they put it in quotes, they're fulfilling their job. And the answer is they're not. If I say that you embezzled $1 million from a bank, and somebody writes an article about you saying Thomas Hauser says that you have embezzled $1 million from a bank, and goes on for 800 words reciting all my nonsense claims about you, that's not responsible journalism. Mm-hmm. What they should say in the article somewhere is there is no evidence of any kind to back it up. And when I see people taking the easy route and pretending they're journalists, they're not. So let's talk about what we know about Ryan Garcia, not what Ryan says, because Ryan has also said recently that the people who have been doing the drug testing on him are probably pedophiles, which shows you how responsible he is. Ryan Garcia was tested by VADA prior to fighting Devin Haney. His test from April 19th, which was the day of the fight, and then on fight night, April 20th. Both of those tests were tested by VADA. The A samples came back. Both tests showed that he had tested positive for Ostarine, which is a banned performance-enhancing drugs. The tests also showed that there were metabolites for nandrolone in his system, but that further testing would be necessary to determine whether or not there was, in fact, nandrolone in his system. That further testing was performed, and VADA came back and said, we did not find nandrolone in his system. So where we are with VADA now and their testing is that they have found twice, yes, that there is Ostarine in the urine sample that was taken from Ryan Garcia. He has asked that the B sample be tested. We know from past experience that virtually always the B sample test comes up the same as the A sample test. He will have a so-called expert present at the opening who will then sign affidavits, tweet, do all the rest, saying that the testing process had a dozen flaws in it, and it's not reliable. And what I'd like to know about this so-called expert is that in all the times he has gone to the opening of a B sample, and I'm sure it's dozens because he's one of the go-to people for that, has he ever been at the opening of a B sample and come back and said, yeah, they got it right? I doubt it. I doubt it very much because that's not what he's paid to do. So where we stand with Ryan Garcia at the moment is that he has tested positive for Osterin. His B sample will be tested, and then the process will go from there. Now, what complicates matters is that the New York State Athletic Commission, which has a record of woeful inefficiency when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs, also tested Ryan Garcia on fight night. And their test came back negative for illegal performance-enhancing drugs. Now, what Ryan Garcia isn't saying is that rather than send Ryan's sample to a WADA-accredited lab, which is what a commission should do, the New York State Athletic Commission sent his sample to Quest. Now, Quest Laboratory, maybe on a good day, can tell the difference between blood and urine. They don't even test for Osterin. So when the New York State Athletic Commission says we didn't find any illegal performance-enhancing drug in a system, yeah, they didn't do CIR testing. They didn't test for Osterin. So there's no way they could have found Ryan to have this drug in his system. Now, I have heard that the New York State Athletic Commission has asked the WADA-accredited lab in Salt Lake City to test the backup sample. I don't know what they do then if that comes positive and Ryan wants a B sample tested. That mess has been added because New York didn't do things right. Kim Sumbler has just resigned as executive director of the New York State Athletic Commission. The acting executive director is Matt Delaglio, who I think is an excellent public servant who understands these issues. My understanding is that the New York State Athletic Commission will be moving to a WADA-accredited lab sometime this summer, and we'll hope for the best. But the way it stands now, Ryan Garcia has an issue. I doubt that he's going to deal with it honestly. He's going to, at least to date, where this is concerned, he's made silly statements. He said, well, if I tested positive before the fight, how come they let me fight? Well, they didn't get the test results back till after the fight. I think that Ryan Garcia is a very good fighter. I find him to be a decent person in many ways. I also think that he's a very troubled person at the moment, and I'd like to see him get the help that he needs. He needs mentors, not enablers at this point in his life. There's a lot of good in him, and I hope it works well for him, but he's not on a good track now. As for what the New York Commission will do, they certainly could overturn the result of the fight and change it to no contest. The Haney people might want a disqualification, which would be a victory for Devin, but I don't see that happening. And then the New York Commission has to decide how to sanction Ryan. Putting him on suspension for 3 months isn't going to do it because he's not going to fight for 3 months anyway. And, we'll see. The New York Commission's in a mess now. We'll see if Matt Delaglio can restore some order and if they can get the commissioners to pay attention to their job.
You've answered a lot of my question or follow-up questions there, Thomas, in your detailed breakdown. So I much appreciate that. But just one follow-up to that. It seems like in recent years there seems to be a much more onus on the battle within, winning the battle within the media when it comes to these sort of situations. Have you noticed that trend towards that situation? Am I right in saying that seems to be the case, or is that kind of happened throughout boxing whenever these situations arise?
It's a lot of this is aimed at media, and that's just not boxing, that's society. Fortunately, that's the way it is here in the United States, and I suspect to a degree over in the UK as well. It's less about substance and honesty and truth, and more about how many people can we get to buy into our side of the story. And the media is complicit in that because the media has gotten lazier and lazier, and you have fewer and fewer truly informed people who really try to get to the bottom of this. It is so much easier. Oh, Ryan Garcia's calling. Let's pick up the phone. Wow, wow, wow. I have an exclusive from Ryan Garcia. You transcribe what he says, you put it up. That's not a scoop. That's just being a fanboy and a PR mouthpiece for somebody.
Appreciate that. Well said. Moving forward to next weekend's action, we're fast approaching. It seems like it came round very quickly off the back of the cut that delayed the fight previously. But Fury versus Usyk, the undisputed fight, is now upon us. Touch wood that isn't jinxed for next weekend. But just looking on this battle for the undisputed showdown, I wonder who you favor to come through with the crown on their head.
First, I think that Fury Usyk is a fascinating fight. It really is. Even apart from all the glitz that might accompany it and the fact that it's for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, it's a very interesting fight. One of the things that surprises me is I don't know what it's like in the UK, but here in the United States, there is virtually no buzz for it. Outside of hardcore boxing fans, there's just nothing. I mean, I haven't had a single doorman or person in a supermarket or any place else stop and talk to me about Fury Usyk. They might talk to me about Mike Tyson against Jake Paul, which says something about the state of boxing, but there's not that much interest for it here. That said, I'm intensely interested in it. I have to lean to Tyson Fury. I am assuming that unlike the Ngannou fight, he will be in good shape for this one. I just think he's too big and too strong and too good for Usyk to handle. Usyk is a very skilled, talented boxer, but let's face it, he's had trouble in the heavyweight division. And yeah, he beat Anthony Joshua twice, but Anthony was going through a very discombobulated time in his life for those two fights. So, Oleksandr is good. I think he'll make a fight of it, but I think eventually Fury's size and strength and power and ability to withstand punishment will be the difference. And Tyson can box too. It's not like he's just a wooden statue. Tyson knows how to box.
Do you see? You mentioned there about Usyk being troubled in the heavyweight division. A lot of people are kind of citing the body. Ooh.
If I said Usyk, I misspoke. I mean, when Usyk beat Joshua, Joshua's going through a troubled time.
Okay. Yeah, just mention.
I misspoke and said Usyk when I meant Joshua. But I think I might have said he was going through a troubled time, and I meant Joshua at that point.
No problem. Well, the boxing public have really keyed in on, and some of the pundits within the industry have really keyed on Oleksandr Usyk and the body being a weakness for him and a real key to victory for Tyson Fury. Do you feel the same way that a lot of the Fury success will be because of setting up to what's seen as or perceived as a weakness there from Usyk?
First, if you get hit low and your protective cup is jammed into your testicles, which is what happened to Usyk against Dubois, I don't care what other people say, that'll reveal a weakness, which is it hurts like hell, and you crumple to the canvas. And having said that, I do think that Joshua scored well and did damage when he went to the body against Usyk. And that's a problem. Also, Oleksandr clearly does not have one-punch knockout power at the heavyweight level. So I would expect Tyson Fury to go to the body. I would expect him to lean on Usyk, try to weigh him down in clinches. But, Tyson can go to the jaw pretty well, too. But yes, the body punches are a problem for Oleksandr. But, I go back to what Joe Louis once said. Somebody, once wrote critically about Lewis that he didn't like it. He didn't like to have to take punches to the body. And Lewis's response was, "Who do?"
Can I ask you as well, just to pick your brain on this, for whoever becomes the winner, and hopefully we do get a winner in the fight between Fury versus Usyk, how would they compare to some of the greats in the form of Lennox Lewis or the form of Muhammad Ali?
Well, Tyson Fury has said many times that it's difficult to compare champions across eras. Every time he's asked to compare himself to Lennox or Muhammad or one of those people, he says quite graciously, I think, actually, look, all I can be is the best of my time. So let's start with that. I don't think this is a golden age for heavyweights. Is this better than the time when, Bruno and Selden and Botha were heavyweight champions? Absolutely. Is this Ali, Frazier, and Foreman and Holmes? Absolutely not. And it's tricky because, once I think I'm getting a handle on it, something goes awry. I mean, we all thought Anthony Joshua was the real deal, and then he fell apart. Fury, who seemed like the real deal, looked miserable against Ngannou, and I understand he didn't train, but he still looked miserable. Deontay Wilder seemed this just totally destructive presence, and he came up dry against Joseph Parker. So you never know what any of these guys is going to do on a given day. Right now, if you ask me to put the top 10 heavyweights in the world in a tournament, where they all had to fight each other, so you'd have I guess that would be 45 fights. I would think that at the end of the day, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, and Usyk, not in any particular order, would be the four guys who came out on top. But, I don't know. I just don't know. That's one of the things that makes Fury Usyk so interesting, is you really don't know who's going to win that fight. When it opened, Fury was a slight favorite. Now Usyk is a slight favorite. So I said it's a very interesting fight.
Just to paraphrase and to close off this interview, to paraphrase Barry McGuigan, who writes a column in one of the newspapers over here in the UK as well, former champion Barry McGuigan, he mentioned that he doesn't feel that Fury's resume is that of an elite level fighter, having only beaten one elite level fighter in the form of Vladimir Klitschko. He names that the Wilder wins, the Wilder 2 wins and the draw, whilst good wins, wouldn't put those as elite level wins. Do you feel that kind of win against Usyk, as you feel he does get, very much kind of ground and ratify Fury as an elite level fighter here?
Well, first, when Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko, that was not Vladimir at his best. He had already started his downward slide. I think Vitaly at his best certainly would have posed a much greater challenge, and Vladimir also. On the other hand, I was very impressed by the way Tyson Fury fought Wilder 3 times. He certainly looked dominant against Dillian White, and I realize a lot of people have looked pretty good against Dillian White, but still that was an impressive performance. Tyson Fury, because of his size and his skills and his physical strength, would have been an interesting challenge for any heavyweight at any time. And then you also have to consider the size differential. We look at Usyk and we say he's a small heavyweight. Well, Usyk for his last fight, I think, weighed 217 pounds. That was what George Foreman, big, destructive George Foreman, weighed when he beat Joe Frazier the first time. So it's all relative. Everything's changing. And what we'll learn on May 18th is who deserves to be called the heavyweight champion of the world and the best heavyweight in the world right now.
Looking forward to it. I'll leave the final word with you. You can close off with whatever you like. Once again, a pleasure speaking to you. Looking forward to the next conversation.
These conversations are always fun, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.